A couple days ago, Crashy put out a video about the current game state. We're 6 months into Predecessor's lifespan, and he talked about a lot of things. The most important topic to him specifically was surrounding the instances of AFKs or trolls in his game that seem to be becoming ever more present as the lifespan of Predecessor stretches on.
Probably one of my biggest issues with the game right now is AFKs. Now, to anybody from Ometa that's listening to this, I think that this is a really important topic. I've actually posted some feedback in the creator Discord about this. I think that getting ahead of the AFK issue is absolutely important, and it's one of the few things that I would say that I think that Ometa is kind of failing at personally. Now, here's like some anecdotes, right? So take it how you will. I want to say realistically, probably every 6 to 8 games, not every other game, not every few games, and I'm building an average here, but on average, not kidding, I think every 6 to 8 games I have someone full quit AFK the game.
As the lifespan of Predecessor has stretched on, I will say that I have anecdotally noticed an increased number of AFKs and trolls in my own games, and I would say that Crashy's average number of every 7-8 games having an AFK or a troll is fairly accurate, but I don't notice it quite as much because when I play, I usually carry all of my teams, and so when there are AFKs, they're on the enemy team. Now, Crashy did continue to elaborate in his video. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I will link it down below, so go ahead and check that video out and then tell him I sent you.
Now, here's the thing. These punishments, whatever they are, however it's being handled, they're not enough. It's not enough. I'm seeing AFKs happen way too often. I'm talking to other people in the community who get AFKs. I'm watching streams where people AFK. I'm looking at matches on, Ometa City and seeing AFKs. And ultimately, I think that what's happening, I'm going to use a word that I used earlier, is that we are starting to see a culture of quitting and giving up and mentally checking out happening more and more.
So Crashy puts out that video yesterday, or honestly, it might have even been this morning. I can't remember. And then the very next game he plays today is this game I'm going to play for you now, where he has somebody, his very first game back, troll and AFK his game. And on top of that, I will say he's had a very unfortunate spree of games lately where he's been having, probably in his last 20 games, he's had like 5 or 6, maybe even up to 8 AFKs. It's just been quite ridiculous actually watching his streams. So I do feel for the guy a little bit, and I think his passion in his next clips is probably warranted.
He said you are trash jungle, and said 0 awareness. I said, homie, I'm 6-1. They're just gonna bitch and moan all game. I'm literally carrying them. I'm literally carrying this game, and they're bitching and moaning. Also, we have a 6-0 Sev. We have a 6-0 Sev, and he's AFKing. Look at this fucking loser, dude. AFK. Let me turn on the fucking AFK counter, right? Look at this fucking idiot. Look at this guy, Joe JDF12. Dude, I might not play Pred tonight. I might literally this might be my only game of Pred. Every time I fucking play this game, it's infested with nothing but AFKs, and Ometa does nothing about it. And I'm getting like, I don't want to play this version of the game anymore. I don't want to play this version. Until they start banning AFKs, I don't know if I want to play this game anymore. I'm sick of it, dude. I'm sick of playing the game with AFKs. I have a call to action. So to Ometa Studios, Robbie, Carrie, and Nabori, I'm directly speaking to you. If I don't get confirmation, if me personally do not get confirmation from one of the 3 of you that this player has specifically been actioned, well, then I'm just done playing your game for a while. And you can think to yourself, well, this is a little bit of aggressive, but I'm telling you, and I'm pleading with you, every single day, multiple times a day, I'm getting people leaving my matches. And quite literally, if that isn't hurting the game, then I don't know what is. So I'm pleading with you to please give us more communication about punishments, give us confirmation about punishments, up the penalties for punishments. I promise you that this is a long-term investment that you need to make for the health of your game, and if you don't make it, then people are going to leave, myself included. It's Joe JDF12 or Crashy. One of us gotta go, right? It's either him or me.
Now, Crashy said something earlier that I just wanted to point out once again. He said there's starting to become a culture of quitting in the community, and he said that he thinks the community managers and, Ometa as a company in general need to get ahead of this before it starts being commonplace. I think it's fair to say that, one, I think junglers take a lot more abuse from the community in general because they're an easy scapegoat. But 2, I think content creators, especially the content creators that are as big as Crashy is, take a lot more targeted harassment from the community in general because it's really easy for them to get attention that way, right? Whether it's good attention or bad attention. Um, and what ends up happening to streamers eventually trickles down into everyday games because people see that behavior and see that it's acceptable, right? But I do agree that something needs to be done to get ahead of this and actually punish these players. And then I think having feedback, not just on like AFK players, but feedback in general would be a welcome change from Omeda. There have been instances, kind of, I think a good example is with FaZe. FaZe released super weak, and so they've just finally a month later they're patching and some changes to her. Probably be out. It'll probably be out today when this video is up. Um, but they're very similar to some feedback that a particular player, Black Tims, was giving in the forum. And I'm not saying that you took the info from him because, like, some changes are kind of obvious and things can be hive minded quite often, but they are incredibly similar to what he said. And so just something like, hey, that's a good idea, or just any kind of feedback at all would be good, because I think a lot of us, a lot of people that I've talked to who are notable in the community kind of get the feeling that we say things and then are just kind of ignored. And I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing if you say that you want and value our feedback. Now, I don't like to be the person who files complaints without offering solutions, so here's a couple thoughts that I had. On the Predcast last week, we kind of talked about this a little bit, and I brought up the idea of the low priority queue from Dota 2.
Let them fight.
But also the system in League of Legends where there are end of season rewards, and if you are not a high enough honor level, then you miss out on those rewards. I think a combination of the two would be good. Obviously, as always, there's the game population to consider, and there may or may not be a high enough population and a high enough population of players that deserve to be in low priority queue to have a low priority queue. But as far as a long-term solution goes, I think a pivot towards something like that in the future should be considered. As for right now, I think a couple of things need to happen. One, there needs to be some sort of system in place that automatically delivers bans to players after, a certain amount of reports. I don't know if that is happening. I know that there was a ban wave earlier in the year for toxicity, but I think that there needs to be, on top of that, a player support team. Omeda doesn't have that right now, and I think it's, become kind of obvious because anytime somebody has a toxic player in their game or a rage quitter in their game, what happens? Somebody goes on Reddit or somebody goes on Discord and they post there hoping that Robbie sees it, and sometimes he'll bless us in the comments by saying, hey, this player's been taken care of, and that's really good. But that shouldn't be the CEO's job, but it kind of is, because the CEO's job is to handle basically all the hardest problems or all of the problems that the rest of the company isn't equipped to deal with. And because there's no player support team that handles reports like this, the rest of the company isn't equipped to deal with that, and so it de facto goes to Robbie. And I don't think that that's really fair for him to be doing that. So I think there needs to be a department that handles this, even if it's only one or two people, even if it's just like a community manager who takes care of this kind of stuff. I think that should be put in place. That way, these things get taken care of, and it becomes less of an eyesore, I suppose, is the best way of putting it, for the community.